Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Power Within podcast. I'm your host, Alethia Jackson, the founder of the Ultimate Power Play, a membership social network and convening series connecting women leaders across sectors to foster relationships, to build strategic partnerships, and create community. We are hosting live today from the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's 54th Legislative Conference Impact Podcast booth. And we're so excited to be here. The energy is amazing in this space with this year's theme, this moment, power, policy, and progress. We're also coming right off the heels of our Ultimate Power Play lunch, celebrating a powerful gathering of some of the most dynamic women leaders discussing power, purpose, and resilience, making today's conversation especially timely. And my guest, Benita Fitzgerald Mosley, embodies all of those qualities. So I'm so excited to have her. I'm going to give them some quick background on Ultimate Power Play, and then we're going to hop right into the discussion. Okay. I'm so excited about this discussion. So background on the Ultimate Power Play, it's a network that I formed as a C-suite executive who wanted to connect authentically with other women across sectors to build relationships, drive innovation, and personal and professional success. And whoever you are, wherever you are, if you are leading in any way, you can't do it in isolation. You need community. That's so incredibly important. And this is about building community. And this podcast, we delve into the concept of power because we really try and demystify it. Because what we have been made to believe is that power is connected to a title, it's connected to what office you sit in or a role or being on a list. But instead, power is truly the ability to influence something, to influence the behavior of others, and to drive impact. And you know what? We each have power that exists within all of us. And I find that people learn best by example. So I invite some of the most dynamic women I know onto this podcast to talk about power and what that looks like in their lives and how they leverage it. And so today I have my guest, none other than the Olympic gold medalist. Check out her necklace. Please show this necklace. Okay, there we go. Benita Fitzgerald Mosley, she's an Olympic gold medalist, accomplished CEO, change maker, and lifelong believer in the power of overcoming obstacles. She's led national nonprofits, guided athletes through transitions, and championed women's leaders. And she also has a firm, Lead Leg. And I'm going to let her tell you about that because I love the story around that. So we're going to hop into it. Hi, Benita, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you. So exciting to be here. You talk about energy. I mean, you embody all that energy that's floating around this convention center. So thank you for having me today.
Well, thank you. So, Benita, my first question is, how do you define power?
I feel most powerful when I'm operating within my strengths and my passion, when I'm living life and life isn't living me, if that makes sense. And I used to think that power had something to do, like you said, with the title, that people, controlling people, commanding people, how much money you have or something. But as I have gotten older and more mature in my career, I realized you're right. It's about influence, but it's also about feeling that confidence that you can achieve the goals that you want to achieve. And once you've done that enough times, you realize the power that you have yourself. And once you become comfortable with that, once you understand how to develop that power and use it to the benefit of not only yourself but others, to create that legacy that you want, that's when I feel most powerful.
I love that. And there are two things that you said, and I'm going to pull the thread on those. It's once you realize you have that power and you use it, and then building legacy. And so the concept of this podcast came about with my grandmother, who at 14 decided she wanted to leave Savannah, Georgia in 1942. And she wanted to move to New York and start a life for herself, because I guess in 1942 at 14, you could start a life for yourself. Okay. And my grandmother decided she was going to save her money, and she asked her aunts to take her back with them to New York when they came. And she started, and she said, I have enough money from my bus trip, and I will get a job when I get there, and I will figure it out. And they did.
14.
And at 14, she realized, I have the ability to change something. There's something I want, and I have the ability to influence others and to change it. And she did. And she built a beautiful life and a beautiful family. And when you talk about legacy, it is I sit on her shoulders, and I'm here as a result of a decision that a 14-year-old made in 1942 and a series of others that brought me into existence.
Yeah.
And so I love everything about that. And I'm going to follow on with that is tell me about your superpower. What is your superpower?
My superpower is really being able to translate ideas and vision into action. So a lot of times as leaders, we have a great vision for what we want to do, and life gets in the way, the urgent gets in the way ahead of the important. And I have a real skill for being able to rally the troops, if you will, around a specific vision, clarify the steps to get there, and lead them down the path that allows us to reach our goals. And then, of course, celebrating those wins and also rewarding people at the end of the day. I've run a lot of different nonprofits, large and small, and people think of nonprofits as, more of a scarcity model. But my understanding in running any business, for profit or not for profit, is you have to motivate the people who are working with you. And nothing motivates better than putting additional incentives in front of people to better their lives and make more money, right? And so tying those goals tying what I call a performance screen to the achievement of those goals allows those individuals to all feel like they're on the same page. We are, my winning is your winning. Everybody is not in their silos. We all understand what the goal is. We all understand what the vision is, and we're tracking towards it. And so whether it was helping Team USA win more medals than they had in 20 years and at the London Olympics, or it was, quadrupling revenue for women in cable telecommunications and going from a deficit budget to a several $1 million surplus. Those are the kinds of things that I've been able to achieve, and now I realize that not everybody does that.
Right.
I can't say that everybody can't do it. I think everybody can do it, but not everybody does it. And that execution, that be able to see that vision, but also turn it into action, is really important.
It's such a great point. A few years ago, I took on a new role and a leadership role within a Fortune 25 company, and I had this whole new team. And so to your point of, I did a series of meetings with my leadership team, but then I would do skip step meetings and meet with some of their staff and others. And what was really important was to understand where people's strengths were, but also what motivated them.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there are some across the line motivations, but then there are some other motivations that people have individually. And once you understand that, right, it's easier to encourage people. It's easier to get them aligned with your vision, because you also then see like each player on the team. Well, where should this person be?
Absolutely.
Right? Like, what is their role on the team? And if they understand that and align with the vision and understand that the role they're playing in helping to, effectuate that, it goes so much longer, go so much further, and it also helps build a resilient team. So when you start to have, downturns, when you have shifts, the team is still connected to the vision and the mission, and it'll just take you much further.
I would also add another thing that I learned as a leader is when people aren't on the same page as you, when they haven't bought into the vision, when they aren't really working as a team, then that might be the time for them to find some place where they do want to, use their talents towards a different kind of vision in a different organization. And that's usually a win-win for both. It's a win for the leader. It's a win for the employee.
Absolutely.
Because if they're that miserable, why show up every day, right? And that old adage about one bad apple spoils the whole. Yeah, it really does, and it happens all the time. And as much forward motion as you want to make, one individual can hold the whole group back.
Right. No, that's exactly true, and it's better for the team. And it's just one of those exercises of leadership that you have to identify that and then begin to move in that direction again.
I wanted to talk a little bit too about the confidence that you have to have in order to not only believe in your superpower, but to use it. And going back many years, you've heard me tell the story. I was on the track preparing for the 1984 Olympic Games. And it was after practice one day. And I had, the same, I guess, film running in my head that I was just happy to have made the Olympic team, happy to be going to LA and represent the United States, happy to be in the race, happy to, right? Kind of happy to be
happy
nominated.
To be in the number. Just happy to be in the number.
Yeah. And then I realized, what am I thinking, right? Like, I'm in this to win this.
Yeah.
And why not me get to win the race and get the gold medal and take the victory lap and get the, get the national anthem played in my honor. And once I had that mind shift and I had that epiphany, it really did change my life. It not only changed my life a few weeks later when I crossed the finish line, only 0.04 of a second in front of the girl who got the silver medal from the UK, but how the power of asking, why not me? And having a sense of expectation, right? And so when it comes to superpowers, underlying my abilities and my skill set around being able to turn vision into action is the confidence that I have to say, why not me? Be able to, incorporate my strengths and my talents to make a change.
And it's really a great point because it also carries over to why not me? I have this great idea, and maybe I'm not the leader of this, organization, but I see where there's a need or a void.
Yes.
And so why not me raise my hand and say, I think we should go in this direction.
Absolutely.
I think we should look at it this way because no one else is. Have you ever thought of perhaps this? And if we did X, then we could achieve this, in a different way. And so why not me? Why not me raise my hand? Why not me having a great idea and taking agency over this space?
Absolutely.
And so
it's for athletes, it's for executives, it's
absolutely
for mothers and fathers. And I think even the younger women and men are that can adopt that kind of attitude, the better off they'll be for the rest of their lives and their careers. They won't hold that.
Right.
It'll tap into that power within them and the confidence that they really need to succeed.
Absolutely. So Benita, how important is it for you to have community? And I talk about community a lot, and that's one of the tenets of power play is building this network. And so tell me, what does community look like for you, and how important is that as you exercise your power?
I think community first started with my family, my nuclear family, my mom and my dad and my younger sister, seeing not only that nuclear family, but my mother was the youngest of 11. My dad was one of 8. So our extended family.
I thought I had a large family.
Huge. Cousins and getting together with them for family reunions and holidays. So having that just very familial community was always really important in our family. Now, my dad used to talk about the 10 of us, my mom and dad, my sister, me, our husbands, and then our 4 children between us, 2 kids each. And, that nuclear family has grown, and we would get together every Sunday after church at my mom's house and have dinner and just shore each other up for the week, right? Before on Sundays. That is translated to my own nuclear family now with my husband and my 2 kids, although they're in their 20s now. We have each other's back, all the time. And particularly my husband. Whenever I have a bad day, he's like, you need to read your press clippings. Well, now he would say, Google yourself, right? I mean, maybe press clippings was a few years ago, but now Google yourself. And so that family connection is important. The second thing for me is finding other women to commune with. And some of those are my ride or die best friends. Some of them are, I'm in a couple of different social organizations. And so it's those women. Some of them are now a nucleus of neighbors and women from Jack and Jill or something that we've got together. Several of us, 5 moms and 6 daughters, did a Martha's Vineyard trip, a mother-daughter
I
trip
saw the
this
beautiful
summer.
photo you shared with me.
And it was just amazing to be able to commune with them over a course of several days. So that community is professionally, I have those, but I think the family and the friendships are my safe haven, if you will.
It's interesting. I mentioned I have 5 sisters. There's 6 of us. So I come from a large family, and that was always instilled in us that like we were each other's keeper. Like you are going to take care of your sister. You all will take care of each other. And God forbid anything happens, to my parents, like you all need to ensure that, you are again each other's community. And so just having come out of that. And then I always say I'm a natural sort of girl's girl because I come from this large family of women, and that's just pulled through. But it is community. It is that communal responsibility for one another. And so it's so important. I think especially now as people feel more isolated. And so, the studies and the data will show us that despite all the things that are supposed to connect us, people actually feel more isolated. And that community is important in longevity, that they have found that people who remain in community, that actually the lifespan is longer. And so it's just, it's healthy. It keeps us, again, it's one of those things that keeps us alive. It brings us joy.
That interaction is the thing that keeps us going. I always breaks my heart when someone says, or you read about people who just as a family aren't close. They've got siblings all over the country that, oh gosh, I haven't seen my brother in 5 years or whatever. And it's so important to me that I just, hope for the best for them, that they can have that family connection as well.
So Benita, my next question is, and I imagine, especially being a professional athlete, and sort of the mind games that other athletes will play with you in order to get that leg ahead of you. Has anyone ever tried to take your power? And how did you respond to that? What did that look like?
Definitely on the track. Those mind games are played, and you can see it more, I think, in men's sports when football or basketball and guys are talking smack to one another. Women's basketball, it's starting to happen a whole lot more often, and the public had problems with it at first, but now I think it's becoming a normal part of the game, which is great. That they can have that swagger and say what they need to say. My competitors oftentimes would do things to draw attention to themselves, right? The hurdles aren't right. My blocks aren't right. I need to change my blocks. I need to, whatever it was. It wasn't necessarily anything directed at me specifically, but causing a ruckus that took me off my game.
Right.
So once I realized that this was a ploy, a technique that they were using, I realized that I had to have that tunnel vision, that I had to, hone my focus in. A lot of times you'll see the camera stand in your lane as the announcer is introducing someone that's on the track, and they might wave or smile, and some people just stand there and they just, keep that focus on, because having that break in focus can take your power away. So it's happened then. It also has happened once or twice in my professional career. And I was CEO of Lauria's Sport for Good Foundation for 4 years. And unfortunately, at the very beginning of the pandemic, 2 of our biggest supporters were Richemont, who owns Cartier and Piaget and Montblanc and a bunch of luxury brands, and Mercedes-Benz, neither of whom were selling cars or Cartier watches in the spring of 2020, right? And so they felt like we were certainly an important cause, but they felt like they needed to cut back their contribution at that time, which meant they needed to make cuts. And I was, a victim of the cuts. They just chopped the head right off. Both me and our chief operating officer were laid off. And I took it pretty personally, I think, at first. And then I decided I got to reclaim my power. How am I going to do that? One way, I read my pledge studies. I looked back at all of the great work that we had done in the 4 years while I was at the helm at Laureus. All of the new programming that we put in place, all of the millions of young people that we had impacted. Laureus' mission is to use sport as a tool for social change, right? And so opening up education opportunities and physical activity and more leadership opportunities to young people through the power of sport. And we did that 2.2 million times during my tenure. And so once I did that, I started reading the Maya Angelou's poem, Still I Rise.
Okay.
And I actually took a couple excerpts from that poem and I wrote back to the board with this list of accomplishments and ended it with an excerpt from Still I Rise. And just the activity of just writing that,
yes,
pulling all those accomplishments together,
Mhm.
writing it, and then sometimes they tell you write it, but don't send
right,
it.
right. But you sent
I
it
sent it,
with
and
some Maya Angelou
it was the
quotes.
best send I think I've ever done in my entire
Yeah.
career.
Yeah.
And I felt so proud of myself for having the gumption to do that.
Yeah. I almost wish and think maybe we all need to do that once a year. Just literally write. I mean, even if we don't need to send it to anyone in any particular case, but just looking at all that we've done, right? Whether it's a year or periodically, but to just continue to, sometimes you forget, and sometimes you just forget how great you are. And I'll just say it.
Yes.
And so it's like, let's pull those receipts. Like, let's go through all that's been done. Because sometimes you just do it and you just keep moving.
Yes.
And don't take it all
I was
in.
thinking about that whole idea of looking in the rearview mirror. I think as an athlete, coaches always used to tell us you're only as good as your next race.
Mm-hmm.
So don't rest on your laurels.
Mm-hmm.
You hear that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think about, I'm so fast because I ran this 2 years ago. Well,
Right.
if you aren't running it today,
Mm-hmm.
if you aren't beating so today, everybody's getting faster. They're not shaving hundreds of a second of their time. And if you're not keeping up, then you're falling behind.
Right.
And so most of us want to look forward, but I do think it's important to look in the rearview mirror every once in a while.
And sometimes you have to look backwards in order to look forward.
Absolutely.
And
you learn from those mistakes as well as the victories.
Yes, as well as the victories. And saying, I did that and I can do this next really hard thing, even though it's difficult, even though I'm afraid, even though I don't know what's coming around that corner. But I've done it before in another situation with something else, and I can take on this new challenge because of who I am. And so, absolutely, I love that. And you mentioned, even though everything is not always positive and it's not always a win. So, if there were one thing that you could identify, you're like, oh, it was such a regret. If you use that word, what would that be?
I call it more disappointments rather than regrets.
Yes.
Because along the way, everything that's happened in my life has led to the next good thing in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I could take that piece out, but it would completely change the trajectory of my life. I'll use an example. I used to really lament the fact that I cut my career short. I made the team in '80. We ended up boycotting President Carter boycotted the Olympics, so I couldn't go to Moscow. I made the team in '84, won the gold medal in the 100-meter hurdles. I missed making the team in '88 by 1/100th of a second. I was coming off surgery. I hadn't hurdled much. My timing was a little off, and I hit the last hurdle. And as I was leading the race, hit the last hurdle and tumbled across the finish line, and got fourth by 1/100th of a second. And I decided to retire at that point in my life. Whereas Carl Lewis and Jackie Joyner-Kersee and all of my contemporaries kept on running, not just one more Olympics, but 2 and sometimes 3 more Olympics. And I would look back and think, oh gosh, I wish I had kept running, no matter who knows what I could have accomplished. But also I think about, well, if I'd done that, nothing in my career would have happened the way it's happened. All of the opportunities that came when I did retire, when I did focus on my engineering career for a couple of years, and then get hired at Special Olympics and start my sports administration career, and then went on to get promoted through the Olympic movement, and then left and went to the cable industry, and then went back to sport. None of that would have happened. The CEO opportunities, the leadership opportunities, the board opportunities. Some may have, not certainly in the same sequence. And I met my husband. I call my gold medal the gift that keeps on giving. And I met him because a judo athlete friend of his knew a judo athlete friend of mine. And we were both in Denver, living on opposite sides of the country, Atlanta and California. Happened to meet up in Denver, and we've been married, 29 years. So
I love
can't
a good love story.
Have any regrets about what's happened, because it led me to the life I have today, which I'm gloriously happy with.
So a meditation instructor that I follow, and one of the meditations, she had this great quote, and it was, there are no throwaway moments in life.
No.
They are all woven into who we are, and we own each of them. They belong to us. And again, they're ours.
Yes.
And so no throwaway moments in life. So, Benita, I will ask you, I have 2 more questions. One, what are you most proud of?
It's pretty obvious. It's the gold medal. But because of what I just said, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Every aspect of my life has been impacted by me winning that gold medal. And I talked about the confidence and the why not me, right? Every job opportunity generally comes at me because of someone I knew in sports. I mean, it just keeps paying dividends. My daughter is running at the University of Maryland. Well, her head coach was a teammate of mine.
Oh, wow.
Back in the day, right? So when she started looking at schools and being recruited, my college coach, who I'm still dear friends with today, said, "Don't send her anywhere where you don't know the coach," right? And so we only visited schools where I knew the head coach or knew the assistant coach because I knew they take care of family, right? And he does. The head coach in Maryland takes great care of Maya. She's a senior now and thriving, and it's important that I think about that moment, not just because it was 41 years ago, so it was a long, long time ago, but the impact of that moment has impacted my entire life. And every time I think back on it, I was at an event for Willing Warriors a couple of weeks ago. I was riding in a bike ride, and they played the national anthem. And really, honestly, for 20 years after winning that gold medal, I would tear up every time I heard the national anthem. It waned after the last couple of decades, but even still, in moments like that, I start singing it, and my heart's full of pride, and I just get feel so grateful that I had that moment that has been so impactful for me.
So, Benita, last question. Can you share with our listeners an example of a practice or something you do or a resource you use or something that helps you continue to tap into your superpower?
Yeah. Like you talked about, I launched my consultancy called Lead Leg.
Mm-hmm.
And it stands for the first leg that goes over the hurdle, which is the lead leg that takes you down the track. But it also stands for leadership and legacy. And I do consulting, public speaking, I do leadership development, I do strategic planning and vision and strategy. And so I get to practice my superpower, all the things I'd love to do that I'm good at, all the time through my consultancy. And I think practice makes perfect, and also perfect practice makes perfect. So, working to perfect my superpower, and doing that and being action oriented in that has been a gift.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I thank you for being here today. I appreciate your time in this incredible conversation. And it's been inspiring to me to learn more about your journey and your resilience. And I hope it's been inspiring to our listeners and that they embrace their power, the power that lives within them in your community. Please make sure to follow us at the Ultimate Power Play on Instagram to hear about what we're listening to and other power players. Follow us on LinkedIn, Ultimate Power Play, and be sure to check Benita out. Benita, where can they find you?
Well, I have two websites. One is www.leadleg.com, or just my full name, BenitaFitzgeraldMosley.com. So that one's my speaker site, and the other one's for my consulting firm. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.